Welcome back to Franchisors.com. Thanks again for joining us. We have made our way upstairs to floor 3 of our building here in Trevose, Pennsylvania, just outside of Philadelphia. I am now joined by the Senior Director of Franchise Sales, also known as my franchise bubby, for those who know, they know, from Rita's, Lori Shaffron. Lori, thank you for joining us.
My pleasure.
Well, really, really excited to walk through all these with you. I've known you since I was probably 7 years old. So obviously, there's a lot that I've learned from you over the years, and I'm looking forward to kind of having people hear your advice as well. You've been in the franchise space for a number of years now, and I'm sure that you have your opinions on how to build out a proper team. When you came into your business, what was the first thing that you did to build out a proper franchise sales department? What would you recommend to an emerging brand?
Well, I think the first thing that you want to do is put systems in a process. Mm-hmm. You want to have a process. You want to have the right people in place, mm-hmm. and you want to put. You don't want the horse to go before the cart.
Sure.
So that's really what you need to do.
Sure. No, absolutely. And I'm sure that is there any one person? Do you recommend having a lead qualifier or not having a lead qualifier? Is there anything?
A lead qualifier always speeds up the process.
Yeah.
So it has been working very nicely with having a lead qualifier, and it's a really important.
Absolutely. Great. And so when you first, in over the course of your journey in franchising, I'm sure there were a lot of different things that you've learned from those first groups of franchisees. Obviously, some can be a little bit more frustrating than others. Is there, anything that you've learned over the years and kind of how to vet out a franchisee? What type of profile you typically look for that has been consistently proven to be, to make a good franchisee?
Well, you need someone that's going to follow your system. Mm-hmm. I think that part of it is really very important. Mm-hmm. And you need someone that is going to be a part of their business. Mm-hmm. Not someone that's just going to come in and think they know everything.
Yeah, and I think that that's really one of the most important things. It's a consistent theme that we hear about time and time again, is that you want somebody that actually is passionate about the business. And in your case now, obviously, we have all of this delicious water ice in front of us right now. You have to.
I think I've gained some weight since then.
I think we all would have, to be honest with you. It's pretty easy to be passionate about this stuff. You fed me spoonfuls earlier of this stuff, and obviously it's important to be passionate about this. And I think that one thing that you certainly know a lot about is how to differentiate the franchise offering specifically. And we were kind of talking offline about the different, if there's any other brands that specify an Italian ice, but really more the snack category in general. Is there, how are you guys really differentiating yourself from other brands in the franchise space?
Well, our product is made fresh daily, mm-hmm. and we sample all of our flavors, and it's made with real fruit, and we make sure that all of our product is fresh daily.
Yeah, because I think that you were saying to me earlier that when you had Rita's for the first time, when you were young here in Philly where it started, there was only 3 flavors.
3 flavors.
And now there's how many now?
98 flavors.
Yeah,
so we had chocolate, lemon, and cherry to start, and now it's turned into 98 flavors.
Yeah, and and one thing that you did mention to me too is that not only it's easy to differentiate on the consumer side because it's lots of fresh fruit and all of that good stuff. I can see there's little raspberry pieces in there right in front of us.
Yes, there are. Brownies too.
Yeah, well, that one was really unexpected. I did not see that coming. But on the franchise offering side, you did mention to me that there are different ways. To actually build out locations too, right? It's not just a normal retail store.
That absolutely is correct. And one of the things that's most important for us is that they get into the right location, mm-hmm. and its size is very important. Mm-hmm. So if you get into too big of a space, you're paying the landlord from your profits.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that that's a recurring thing that people want to scale down. They don't want to have the 3,000 square foot store for a Rita's. Now, you were telling me what is the typical
It's 800 to 1,000 square feet is perfect.
Yeah, no, exactly. And and you were also mentioning to me too that there's different types of retail spaces. You guys are getting more into non-traditional and things like that.
Non-traditional, absolutely. our non-traditional spaces, but we also have satellite locations where you can have it on the beach. All of our products are made on the premises every day. The Italian ice is only good for 36 hours, and then we have to dump it. So it's very, very important to have the right products and the right spacing. But if you do a satellite, you can take the product with you and not have to have the location where you're making it.
Yeah, and I think that that's something leading into a conversation that I know that you've been familiar with for a long time, which is ensuring that the franchisees have more revenue streams, because what it comes down to, of course, is unit economics. And so talk a little bit about that as well.
So I think that number one, that our brand is very important, but into making more money, our goal is to help the franchisees make more money.
Right.
So it's nice to have your one store, but it's also nice to have as I said, a satellite, or we have mobile units. We do catering. That is really very important as well, because that brings an extra revenue stream.
Yeah, for them to make more money. And what metrics do you guys look into, and to kind of help understand from a data standpoint, what is really helpful for you guys to take a look at in terms of data points when it comes to unit economics? Is there any?
Well, we're basically very successful. Our franchisees are profitable, but we're really recipe driven to increase the sales.
Sure, absolutely. And so, you're looking at, how much product they're using per, how much fruit they're using
that
per,
is
when
correct.
you're throwing out. Got it.
Right.
That totally makes sense.
Right.
Great. So let's pivot to something that I know, quite a bit about, which is franchise development and franchise sales. I'm sure that there are particular things that you feel strongly about from a franchise sales process standpoint. Is there anything, across your stops in franchising that you kind of have felt really strongly about implementing in a franchise?
Well, I think the biggest mistake that most franchisors make, especially at the beginning, as an emergent, they want to make the sale. But I believe in clustering. I believe it is very important to sell in an area instead of selling one in Philadelphia, one in Washington State, one in Florida. It's really important. So our goal is to stay on the 95 corridor.
Gotcha. I mean, I think it's different for every brand, but at the end of the day, it's important to identify.
Well, it gives brand awareness.
Right. Exactly. That makes sense. Great. And so, where are you guys typically finding? I mean, across the places that you've been in the past in franchising, where have you historically found, your best leads from? Has that changed over time? I'm sure it has.
Well, it has. When we first started, Rita's was the mom and pop, and people just did it by word of mouth. That's all we needed at the beginning. But as we're growing and going into many more states, because the Philadelphia, New Jersey is our core.
Sure.
As we're going into many more states, we had to build out more than word of mouth.
Yeah.
And now we get a lot of our leads from our website and geo-targeting.
Gotcha.
As well.
Yeah, because I think it's obviously also helpful when you know your profile, but I also think that there are a lot of tools that you guys use, that you guys help your franchisees to be successful. I'm sure maybe there's franchise advisory councils or things of that nature. You have any tips and tricks on how to get along with franchisees better? I know since you've been in the space for a long time, I'm sure you have.
I think the most important part of franchising is relationships. And people want to be treated like they're a human being. And as long as you're upfront with your prospect or your franchisees, then it's a win-win for everybody.
Yeah, and it's interesting too, because a lot of people that are younger, that are coming into the space, and you said this to me once, I think a couple months ago when we were in New York, is that it's funny because people in your generation are really receptive to, brutal honesty, because you kind of feel like you almost don't get that, right?
That is absolutely correct, and people feel like they have to be at another level. Okay? And if you treat people the way you want to be treated, it really works. I say that franchising is like a marriage.
Yeah.
And when we go through the process, I tell them we're dating.
Yeah.
I say, and then when they sign the agreement, We're becoming engaged. And when they open, we have a marriage.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it totally makes sense. And I think that is a part of the culture that, you're building within your department here too.
Absolutely.
And, what drew you to Rita's culture specifically? And, is there any tips and tricks you have for small brands that are looking to kind of build out a culture? Because it is a very difficult thing.
Well, I think that with our brand, happiness.
And it's all over the place.
And it's all over the place. Happiness brings out our culture. Okay, that people are happy. They love the product. And that's a lot of our prospects come to us because they love the product and they tasted it somewhere and they want to open where they live now.
Yeah. And it tastes like childhood, right? I mean,
exactly. So that what they do is they bring, as I said, happiness is where they bring it for their consumers, for their franchisees. That people should just be happy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think my favorite brands are the ones that remind me of my childhood. Like, I remember when I first came to Philadelphia to visit here when I was, probably like 8. And I had this for the first time, and I remember that I had the strawberry flavor, and every single time I have it, I feel like I'm like a kid again, which is obviously really fun.
Well, we have the unicorn now because kids like unicorns, and we have sparkles that go on top of the unicorn.
That wasn't around when I was
a kid. No, it's brand new.
No, well,
you have to keep redeveloping.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, you always have to keep redeveloping in order to ensure that, you're going to be successful and that you're being nimble,
and we're going to be in front.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
We're really a leading industry, and
that's the key. In closing, because there's a couple things there's a couple components of this, I think. But looking back, is there? There's probably a couple things that you did, in your time in franchising that you wish that you didn't, but you obviously learned from it. Is there a couple you wouldn't mind sharing?
100%. I think that taking the wrong people in just to get the sale really. It's very nice in the very beginning, but it only gets worse. As I said, when you're dating, everything looks good, and then when you get married, it doesn't get better. So it's the same thing with franchising. If you don't bring in the right people, I don't think it only hurts you. I think it hurts the whole brand.
And how do you know when those people? Is there any kind of alarms that you kind of see that are pretty common that you can kind of identify those people?
They know everything. And they want to do it their way instead of following a proven system.
No, absolutely.
So it just comes into play where a franchise who's not going to follow the system becomes a cancer spot.
Yeah, absolutely. So
so it just becomes really more difficult in that situation.
Yeah, because as you said, following a process the entire way is really the most important thing, and making sure that they're consistent, but they're also having a good relationship with the corporate office.
And also the follow-through. If they're not going to follow through and you have to run after them, you're going to have to run after them all the way.
Absolutely. Well, Lori, thank you so much for taking the time. I really appreciate you having us, and of course, all of the knowledge that you've given me over the years. And I'm also really excited that you guys are feeding us some of this awesome.
It's our pleasure. We'll even give you some to go.
Yeah, well, thank you. I'm about to go and take a bite of some of this, guys. Thank you so much for joining us, and looking forward to having you guys again soon.